Hello. Right now, I want to tell a werewolf story, and the public wants to watch. We have different wishes, but we all need popcorn. I have a daughter. A 4-year-old shining star, that brightens up my life every day. Her mother was diagnosed with cancer years before the pregnancy and unfortunately didn't survive. Paige, my daughter, was her last wish before her life would come to a stop, the only thing my wife had left behind for me. She was my will to live and everything I cared about in this dark and disturbing world. I made sure I could offer Paige anything she would ever desire, not raising her as a spoiled brat, of course. I made sure I could give her the best life I had to offer. Lately, however, I have been finding it difficult fulfilling tasks, such as taking her to the park to play, to cook together and to read her a bedtime story. I've been having pains, and with pains, I don't mean headaches or regular cramps people get here and there. My body has been feeling like it would tear apart. The least I could do was bring Paige to the nursery and of course pick her up, but she could tell I wasn't feeling well and therefore didn't expect much of me for my sake. She was such a good girl. She would let me know when she was hungry and when she was tired, and in between those times, she would occupy herself. It was times like these when I would pat myself on the shoulder and be proud of the way I raised her. But even if it was a practical rather than mental thing I did, I couldn't if I tried. My body was aching so much and I eventually called in sick at work and explained the situation to the nursery. I managed to get myself and Paige to stay home for a couple days, and while that did make Paige happy since she got to spend more time with me, she was increasingly getting more worried about me as the days strolled by. I could tell. She would be the one to wake me up with an absolute adorable attempt at making me what she would call breakfast. Bread that had been ripped apart in the middle, due to the butter that must have stuck to the plastic knife a bit too much when she tried spreading it. On top of it, a lump of jam mixed with the rest-over butter from the knife half-heartedly spread. She would place it on my lap and run back towards the kitchen, only to return with a plastic kid's cup that was filled with her favorite multivitamin juice and a wide smile on her face. She must have felt very accomplished taking care of me like she was. I won't lie, I held my tears back a couple times she did things like that. It was astounding to me how much more mature she was than I would give her credit for. I guess it's my sense of overprotection since my wife died. I don't know if I could continue this life if I'd lose Paige too, so I swore to myself that I would protect her as long as I lived. More days went by of Paige acting like she was a super nanny, and it amused me in a way, but the pain was getting worse. Eventually, I managed to get myself and Paige up and out of the house to pay the doctor a visit. Obviously, they couldn't find anything that could be wrong with me and gave me some painkillers for my headaches before referring me to the local hospital, just for them to tell me that it was nothing but a bug. Nothing but a bug. I have been on this planet for quite a few years and have dealt with quite a few fucking bugs. This was not a bug. I got angry with the nurse and started getting loud. Perhaps it was the pain that fueled my rage, but I was fuming and let it out on the staff. If it wasn't for Paige pulling my hand and asking if we could go home now, I would have probably ended up starting a fight. I couldn't do that in front of her. I am the role model, and that means to be as best of an example as you can be. I left with a raspy grumbling and put a happy face on for the ride back home so that Paige wouldn't have to worry. She knew that I wasn't well. But whatever it was that caused it, I didn't want to have her worrying more than she had to. I guess you could say I kept most of my pain hidden from her, but in reality, As much as I wanted to believe she thought of it as a normal cold or something simple, I knew she understood this wasn't normal. It was indeed not normal. I would wake up night after night, standing in the garden and gazing at the moon after opening my eyes. It was disturbing. I hadn't remembered leaving the house in the middle of the night to go outside in the first place. And what puzzled me was why I would find myself standing in the same place each night. Why was I always facing the moon? I thought of a horror story I once read about a werewolf back in my childhood, but as I realized how absurd it was, I started laughing to myself. There was no way, there had to be a plausible explanation to this right? What I previously referred to as pain eventually became something I would call torture. The pain was unimaginable and any sort of help I sought ended up pointless. Nobody seemed to have dealt with this whatever it was, before. I had my blood tests taken, just to be informed that everything was normal. I had scans and even tried massages, but neither of them showed any sort of result. 3 days ago it was getting close to something Paige was really looking forward to. A full moon. She always had this obsession with planets and the universe, ever since she had a planet workshop thing in early nursery days. She would tell me all about what she had learned about the galaxy, and I could tell it was something she would be very interested in for a long time. I decided that despite my condition and considering the number of letdowns I have let her deal with for the last couple of weeks, I would pull myself together and sit in our garden to watch it happen together. I was sure she would like that very much, and I wanted to do something for her since she had been taking care of me so very well. For the next 3 days until the full moon, my condition seemed to be somewhat different. I had become physically stronger than I had ever been at any point of my life, and considering that all I had done for weeks was lying in bed and resting as much as I could, it struck me as weird. I could feel it. Something was happening to my body. However, I wasn't sure what exactly it was. The pain though continued. I would experience muscles tensing until it felt like they would split apart. My stomach twisting and turning until I would throw up, and blood pumping through my body at a speed that it gave me what seemed to be an everlasting migraine. My nights were spent rolling and turning around in bed as I tried to cool myself down, having blackouts and finding myself standing outside staring at the sky screaming, and incredible increase of hair growth on places such as my chest, arms, and legs. It felt like a monster was evolving inside me. I have no other way of explaining it. This was not normal, and the fact that it disabled me from taking care of Paige as I had done for a full 4 years prior, upset me. Today was the day. However, I informed Paige about my plans and watched her eyes light up in excitement. I made her some food before we would go outside to witness the rare sight of a full moon. While she munched down on her food, I escaped into my room to grab our coats. I walked around my bed, past the window, and glanced outside to check up on the moon. As soon as my eyes met the moon, I collapsed as the pain the torture became so intense that I couldn't handle it anymore. My head was aching and pulsing as every single vein felt like exploding. My arms, my legs, my stomach, and my back tensed up to an extreme. I was sure my skin would rip apart from the pressure my bones were put on it. I watched in horror as my nails grew longer, into what I realized to be claws, and the skin on my arms turned black. Already on my knees, I supported myself by pressing my hands onto the floor as hell was unleashing inside me. My eyesight became red and I felt the hair all over my body grow into dog's length as I changed shape. My mouth grew teeth I haven't had before. My fingers grew longer, and as I watched my legs grow black and muscular, I noticed that under my muffled crying and panting Paige had stopped making her usual slurping sounds. Had she noticed me? I prayed to God she would stay in the living room as a blood-curdling scream exited my lungs that I didn't recognize as my own, and my new body rose up. I turned my head to face the mirror next to me, and there I was. No. There it was. The thing that had caused me hell on earth for a while now, the thing that came close to ruining my life and drive me insane, was standing in the mirror looking back at me. It was what humans would refer to as a werewolf, but the actual sight of one let my blood run cold. I had turned into a monster and felt my thoughts beginning to be altered by a sense of bloodlust. The thing I had evolved into had an immense primal instinct that screamed for death. Just before it completely consumed my own thoughts, therefore turning me into a horror story told all around the world, I heard a scared, tiny, high-pitched voice behind me. "Daddy?"